Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, I am super pumped because something I just massively overpaid for has arrived. Yes, there she is. Oh yeah, what is in this box, folks? I might have severe buyer's remorse over, but I think it'll be fun to play around with in the meantime.
NZXT's H7 series cases offer plenty of hardware support and a clean aesthetic sure to complement any build. Choose between white or black variants, as well as standard, flow, or elite trims for the right mixture of airflow and beauty. There's plenty of room up top for a fan rad combo larger than just a single 120 or 140, and support for up to a 360mm up front exists for beefy cooling wherever it's needed. You'll also find several fans included depending on the model. If you choose the white one, you'll get white fans, so that's nice. NZXT cases are overall great values, as you'll find, and you can learn more about them by clicking the link below. I have waited so long for this to arrive. I've actually had one on back order on a different website for a very long time, and it just never showed up in stock. Here in the States, we don't get too many of these at decent prices, and unfortunately, I paid about double what I should have, but I'm an impatient guy, and I figured, well, could at least make a video about it, and I can tell you whether or not it's worth paying what Thrustmaster wants you to pay if you do happen to live in the US. You might be wondering what product I'm talking about. Well, my friends, it is this right here. The beautiful Thrustmaster SF1000 Ferrari Edition racing wheel. This thing looks so awesome in the photos, and I had to have one for my racing sim. I'm gonna unbox it for you here, and we're gonna see just how it feels in the hand. I'm kind of curious about the build quality of this thing, because I mean, it looks like it's got a nice carbon face and whatnot, but you know how they do the whole fake carbon thing. Wow. Holy cow. This is such beautiful presentation. I am already in love with the way that this looks. Wow, oh my gosh. It's made of plastic composite at the back. The handles feel pretty good. Nice little rubber compound, good grip. I've been using a crappy like circular wheel for a good while. And look, there's certain applications it works fine. It's got an Alcantara finish. It's gotten a bit grimy. I have an Alcantara steering wheel in my GTS, and it's a very, over time, just a very chalky, kind of rough texture. So I'm not the biggest fan of Alcantara long term, but this wheel, this just feels really good in the hand. Are you ready? I'm gonna do the deed. Oh yes. One of the big selling points of this wheel, the SF1000, is the fact that it has a digital screen here you can use to show different things on, from the game that you're playing. More than likely, it's going to be F1 2022 or F1 2021. You can put your speed on here. Obviously, you're going to have your lights for shifting, whether or not you have DRS enabled, ERS enabled, things like that. So it's going to come in handy. The bigger wheel that I'm using actually blocks on screen a lot of the stuff that I really need to see, that I'd otherwise see in the wheel if I was racing in a Formula One car. And so having that's going to be a big help, I imagine. I want to get these paddles installed. I'm assuming they weren't in place before because of packaging constraints. I don't know much about the wheel. It does look like the wheel can be charged, which is interesting. And you have these four, looks like Allen screws here that will need to tighten down. You do get an included little tool to torque these down. Ah, I see. So it's not for charging. You get this Type-C cable in the box so that you can update your wheel to the latest drivers before actually starting any race. So that means we'll need to take these paddle shifters back off, which, by the way, they just feel fantastic. We'll remove that. That gives us access to the Type-C port, connect this to the PC, get the drivers installed, and then we'll connect this to our racing sim. All right, and I think that is it. So we finished setting things up. I know this is kind of just skipping around here. It's a huge learning curve for me just to figure out all the controls and how to sync those with the game, which already has tons of controls built in. So I've got the toggles and the buttons mapped the way that I like them. Might end up changing a few things here or there as we go along. But the first thing I did, of course, was hop into the telemetry menu here. This, by the way, is F1 2022, so this wheel will work with the latest game. But you can see I've got the local UDP IP address entered, and that matches the wheel. And that's how we're able to get the display working, as well as the LEDs for shifting and whatnot. I've got it set to 60 hertz for the send rate. I just figured that the higher, the better. If I notice instability, I'll revert back to 30 or 20. The UDP format, I noticed, only works in 2019 and 2020. If you try to bump it up above that, I don't think the firmware in the wheel yet supports later versions, so it's just, I think, a small issue. But it doesn't affect the stuff you see on screen, as far as I'm aware. And then once we tackle those settings, again, map your keys the way that you want. What you'll have to choose from at this point, you can see we've got kilometers per hour top left, we've got our lap timer top right, along with tire temperatures. Down here is where we'll have our DRS and ERS notifications, and you can see the battery there, which will be useful when you're actually racing. You can also switch this, by the way, to actually just a raw digital parameter screen, probably not useful in a race. And then this one here, which shows a lot of different things in a different format. You've got DRS, ERS, your fuel, the temperature, and number of laps you've done. And then you also have this one here, which is a more simplified view, I think. I like this one a lot. It's got speed in the top left. It's got your gear in the top center, which is nice because it lines up with the LEDs. And you've got your tire temperatures off to the right with your lap timer down below. Those are the four that are built in. Of course, use this left toggle here, left of center, to switch between those four. That's pretty much all this toggle is used for. There are other toggles, by the way, on the wheel, and some of them do different things just natively, but I haven't really synced up much else in the game with these toggles. There's just not a ton that you can do with them. Actually, I just realized this right toggle does a bit more. That's cool. So additional displays. Oh wow, so it's like a secondary. You can customize things in a different way here. Well, this one stays the same, but the others, yeah, you can move around a bit. That's pretty cool. I like that. This one's not too bad. A bit rustic. Yeah, so there is quite a bit to play around with here. I'm still learning new things. Again, I've only had the wheel for about 30 minutes, but it definitely feels legit. It feels really good in the hand. I like the aluminum paddle shifters. Really nice there with the magnetic actuation. Just really, really nice tactile feedback when you're shifting. It is quite loud, so if you're trying to play in a quiet environment, this could get a bit annoying. But other than that, I think everything else in terms of how the screen syncs up with the game, the LEDs, the toggle switches, I mean, you got to really firmly press these, but that's what you want. You don't want to accidentally press anything. You want it to be intentional when you're racing. All of this I'm very happy with. So at this point, I think the weakest part of my racing sim is actually the base, which is probably the next thing I'll upgrade later on down the line. It's not super strong. It's not going to rip your arms off. It's nothing like a Fanatec system, but it is a good entry-level servo base, and you can pair it with, I mean, even more expensive premium wheels from Thrustmaster, which I think is really cool, that they have the same kind of mounting, the same connections, the same wiring for all these different steering wheels out there, even ones that have freaking screens, for crying out loud. And the way they got around that with the Wi-Fi integration and the UDP settings in game is pretty clever. And for those wondering what else comprises this racing sim here, a lot of it's from Next Level Racing. This is their FGT cockpit. You can modify this a bit to be more upright or slanted downward like you would see in a Formula One car. I have the very large Samsung Odyssey Neo G9. That's what you see there, 49-inch, like, what is it, a 32:9, I think, aspect. So it's like two 16:9 panels merged together at the center. I think it's perfect for racing applications. I have the T300 RS base from Thrustmaster. I have Thrustmaster pedals down below. You can find all this in a dedicated video linked in this description. And underneath the pedal set, I know you can't see from there. Let's see if I can get over here. It's still pretty dark. But yeah, that case, that Node 202 from Fractal, is actually what houses the PC components that run this racing sim. So you can imagine it gets pretty hot under there, but I really like how just stealthy it is. You don't see the computer that runs all this hardware, and I think that's really cool. It does need to be cleaned though. It's been a good while. So now that everything is set up, I want to give you a proper lap around a circuit. We'll just pick one that's easier so I don't look silly. I'm a decent sim racer, certainly no pro, but I have a lot of fun doing this. So I have the screen recording. I'll show you an overlay of what I'm doing here on screen, also from the camera's point of view, so you can see how quick and how Yeah, just how versatile this steering wheel is, especially when it lights up while we're shifting. By the way, yes, I do race with socks on, not shoes. I like feeling the pedals in my toes. Don't judge me. Here we go. Now, unlike a lot of budget steering wheels out there, and I know this, I'm using that term very loosely because I didn't pay budget prices for this if you ask me, but you know, you've got the carbon fiber deck and you've got all these buttons, right? It looks really pretty, but are they all functional? Yes, the buttons, all of them, do something. Even these little scrolly wheels here on the sides, so these, I think they're called rotary dials. These are also functional, and they control things like the brake balance, the differential. So you can, I mean, just by default in F1 2022, you can use all these kind of as they're marked, but every single one of these dials does something. Now, these aren't location dependent. So for example, if I move this dial to, let's say, the 3 number, that 3 number doesn't really mean anything in the context of the game. It just recognizes that you turn the dial to the right. So a dial turned to the right is a certain signal. A dial turned to the left is another signal. It doesn't matter what position the dial is in. Same goes for this one over here. This controls this is a grip, and this is the engine mode. And these do actually control the engine mode, right, in the game. I think grip on this side. I think this one actually might be the differential. I'm not sure what this rotary dial is. But they're all functional, and that's really cool. Of course, you can remap your buttons. I have these two, the plus and minus for my forward and backward buttons. I've got my start button here, S1. The K2 is my energy deployment, and then I think K1 is my DRS deployment. Oil is, I don't even remember what that one is. Of course, your radio button up here. Neutral, the pit button, that's a really important one to click at the right time. Of course, your paddles at the rear. You can even calibrate the lower paddles if you want. So every button, I guess I say all that to say that every button here does something. And I think that's really cool, especially at around a $399 price point. For around 600 bucks, I guess every button should do something, but these are not just for show. You can hardwire these to do a lot of different things in game, and I think that's really cool. So yes, I massively overpaid for this. This is a $350 wheel, folks. 350 bucks or thereabouts on paper, MSRP. And I paid over $600 for it. Shipped and sold in 2 to 3 days. It got here very quick, but I paid a hefty price tag for it. And just leaves a bit of a sour taste in the mouth because I know what some other folks paid for this wheel, and knowing that they got a much better deal than me, just, yeah, it kind of dampens the experience a bit. This is by far Thrustmaster's best wheel, the best they've ever made. So if you're already in the Thrustmaster ecosystem, you already have a base, you're using an older wheel, and you're thinking about upgrading, this is probably right up your alley. And if you play Formula One games especially, and this wheel's perfect for those applications. But a $600+ price tag is a hefty one to swallow. And I'm not sure what's going on with Thrustmaster's supply. They've been crippled since this product came out, around the time that the COVID pandemic was raging. So, you know, I can't really fault them there. A lot of different companies were affected. But at this point, you would expect them to have more supply and at cheaper prices. I overpaid for this because I've been waiting several months to get a hold of one. And I figured I'd make a video on it. You know, it's a bridge of sorts between PC gaming and cars and racing, and those are two big passions of mine. So I thought that some of you would be interested in it. But at $650, you're branching into premium quality stuff. We're talking stuff from Fanatec that you can get that's going to be just built better all around. Fanatec is top of the line gear for a lot of serious racers, or sim racers, I should say. And so this, at its price point that I paid for it, is just it's bridging too close to that territory, and I'm not sure that folks on the Fanatec side of things would be willing to entertain this, seeing as though it would require them to buy a new base and essentially downgrade. I don't think that Thrustmaster has a base that's on par with a lot of what Fanatec offers. That's just my personal view on it. So yes, you'll spend a lot more for the Fanatec gear. A lot of folks say it's worth it. I've been with Thrustmaster since the beginning of the racing sim game, and I have intentionally avoided Fanatec gear because I don't want to ruin the experience I'm already having and lose thousands more dollars. It's just jump down the Fanatec rabbit hole. You can spend thousands on gear. I'm not sure I'm ready to do that just yet, but I'm happy with what I have. I'm happy with the wheel, but at $650 or so, yeah, could be a lot better. Should you massively overpay for this? Not unless you're an absolute diehard like me who's been waiting several months to get a hold of one. And I still feel a bit bitter about it. Would I do it all over again? Honestly, probably not. It's already going to be tough enough justifying this to the wife. I'm just going to tell her I could write it off as a business expense. That tends to be how I get out of arguments like those. Anyway, with that said, let me know what you think about the SF1000 here. Again, I'm impressed by the build quality. It's pretty premium, especially for Thrustmaster stuff. And that's not an insult to Thrustmaster. They just target a different market. But it's very expensive. And again, you could get a lot of really sweet Fanatec gear around the same price as this. There are a lot of really great wheels that they make out there this is just, it's venturing pretty close to. So you got to be careful with what you're shopping for. Again, if you already have a Thrustmaster base, maybe this is the only option and you feel the need to pay $600+ for it. Thrustmaster's banking on that, that's for sure, because their product page has this listed for that, at least as of time of filming. It might have changed, and in fact, I hope it changes for the better. I hope the price comes down a bit, because it's a fantastic wheel. So again, let me know what you think about this one in the comment section below. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and giving this one a thumbs up if you haven't already either. I just said that, why am I repeating myself? Anyway, thanks so much for watching. My name is Greg, thanks for learning with me.